Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here with a gender sandwich. Okay, it's Mike Hamnet is on the far side. He used to be with RCUH.
Now I'm retired and I'm still part-time with the university.
Welcome, and you brought this pretty lady with you.
I did.
How about introductions then?
This is my wife, Francia.
Hi, Francia. And you know, we really love travel. We love to talk to people who just got back from a trip. And so you are valuable for
Fresh
us.
off the boat.
We're
Fresh
right.
off the boat.
We're
yeah.
right, yes.
Yeah. We want to learn what you did and what you learned. You know, we want to be there with you, actually.
We can try.
Okay, so you went to Russia,
Yep.
and you told me the other day you came back just a few days ago.
Yep.
That's right.
And it's very exciting. And so because it's Russia, we named this episode Zdravstvuj. But I understand from Francia, we probably didn't use the right term. What was the right term?
Well, we could say Dobry Utra, or Dobry Den.
Dobry den.
Dobry Den.
Okay.
It's during the day, yes.
I have to tell you about the
Dobry den.
one cruel moment in my life as a student in New York. There was a guy who was Russian who played the violin, could make your heart sing. He was very, very good, and he was Russian. And he would be on the corner of University Avenue there and 8th Street, I think it was. And he would play all day long, and the violin case was open, and you throw coins in there. And I knew he was Russian, and every now and then I would say, "Paima Pruska." That's all I could speak. I couldn't even say Zdravstvuj in those days.
Oh,
And when I said this, he lit up because there was nobody who could speak Russian. His life was all isolated.
All
you
in
know?
the violin case.
Anyway, that's my little story. So you guys, you know, you decided to go to Russia at a time and actually follow through on your plan because, you know, you could change your plan too.
Right.
At a time when Mr. Putin is, you know, doing bizarre things and every day seems to be more bizarre and anti-American, if you will. You went anyway and you went into the heart of Russia. So
well, Russia had been on Francia's bucket list as a place to go.
Great.
Yeah.
Retirement list.
well, exactly. And, you know, when about 3 different people speak to you in a very short time, you kind of go, ding, ding, maybe there's something we should do. And so then we get online and we look out the prices and then we get sticker shock. And then we say, well, maybe we should go to New York instead. And then a friend of ours said, hey, you can always do New York City. That's easy.
Yeah.
Go to Russia while you still have your health and you still got some zip.
And while we still have diplomatic relations with Russia.
Right, because
Right.
that could end any time.
Well, and you know, that was a big part of it because, you know, I don't want to go when we're actually hating Putin too much. So this way here, at least we snuck in before anything really big and bad happened. So that was it. But I also had seen a lot on YouTube and a lot of pictures of the treasures that were there. And I really wanted to see them up close. And then I got the book out from the library on Catherine the Great. And I got into her story. And that's a 2-pound book, but it was just absolutely fascinating. So again, I wanted to see everything that she brought into Russia to bring it up into the modern world.
I'll make a wild guess to say this was your first trip to Russia.
It was indeed.
It was a
So what did you do, aside from reading about Catherine the Great, what did you do to prepare to go?
Well, when I was in Seattle, I bought a long puffy coat.
Good deal.
And I brought it back to Hawaii, and I looked silly on the plane.
I can imagine.
It was super. But we did invest in some warm clothes, some boots. We figured we wanted to fit in, to not be looking like a tourist, but
Not
like
to look like we're from Hawaii.
so it was kind of that, and.
And then a friend of ours had put us on to a reasonably priced river cruise. And we took a look at it and said, look, we're just going to do this.
What's the name of the cruise that you're doing, the cruise line that you're
It's
doing?
Vodohod, which means beautiful waters, actually, in Russian.
Yeah.
And they're the cruise line, and then and they have I think about, I'm not sure how many ships they've got. We motored with one other of their ships, and they're like 300 feet long, carry a maximum number of passengers of 296.
Here's the picture.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Vodohod River
Vodohod,
Cruise,
yeah.
Gate 1 Travel. Gate 1
Yeah.
Travel, that's a great name for a travel agency.
Isn't that something? Yeah, they've been in business over 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the most of the cruise lines in from Moscow to St. Petersburg, you go basically the same route. And it's not just a river cruise. I mean, it's canals, it's lakes,
Yeah.
it's rivers.
Tributaries, it's
How long is the
It's
trip?
900 miles.
900 miles.
And days?
Days, we were,
They call it a 13-day cruise, but day 1 and day 13, you're traveling, okay? So you're on the boat 11 days.
so then 3 days in Moscow.
Yeah.
We flew into Moscow from LA, and we had 3 days in Moscow.
You mean without stopping?
Yes.
Yes.
12
Yeah.
hours
Yeah,
over the pole.
yeah. But
In daylight the whole way.
daylight, and, yeah, and, you know, everybody was rolling their eyes, because here we're going on this Russian boat, on this Russian airline. And
Aeroflot.
Aeroflot, and they, we hope to see you, we hope.
We hope you make it home.
We'll see you again.
Exactly.
But I think the Aeroflot had a bad reputation as a horrible airline 30 years ago. And most of the people that spread that rumor have never been back. But it was one of the best set of flights we've had in the last 20 years.
Oh, I tell
Really?
you, okay, first off.
Big seats, that's the first thing.
Yeah,
For
big
those big
seats.
Russians. you know.
Yep, yeah, lots of legroom. But the women were young
stewardesses.
and beautiful, the stewardesses, red uniforms, red little hats, white gloves, and 2 big meals.
And wine with
And
dinner.
wine and beer if you want it, just flowing.
Oh, wow.
It
And
was
movies.
No
wonderful.
extra charge.
No
No.
extra charge. And movies that we haven't seen. And so we were just watching
They weren't
movies. that-
Russian movies.
No,
were they?
well,
No,
you
but you
could
could
get
get
it.
Russian
You could
movies.
if
Dr.
you wanted.
Zhivago, maybe?
I didn't see
Yeah,
that,
that
one
one
on the
wasn't
list.
on there, no. But you know, we just, the time went by because we just scarfed on the movies. We just kept, you know, just keeping ourselves entertained. It was great. It was
Did you
really,
find
really
that the
great.
Aeroflot had a lot of Americans?
No, there were some, but
Yeah.
it was mostly European and Russian. Yeah.
12 hours.
Yeah.
Did you deal properly with that? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's a hard flight, man.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
long
it was
flight,
a-
but it went pretty fast.
It went fast. It went fast. You know, when you're being treated like you used to be treated on
Yeah,
an airline,
yeah,
I mean,
right.
you eat it up.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful, yeah.
We could have gone on a little longer.
I'm making notes, mental notes. Okay, so you get to Moscow.
Yeah.
What is it like? I mean, if you go, for example, to Beijing, you're bowled over by the energy and the smog.
Well, you know-
But what about
No
Moscow?
smog.
No smog. But Jay, I wanted to go, you could go Moscow to St. Petersburg or St. Petersburg to Moscow. And I wanted to end up in St. Petersburg because I heard that was like a fairyland. So I thought, well, let's get Moscow over with and we'll wind up with
And
the
we-
last
We
taste.
had heard that Moscow was a cosmopolitan city, but it is a beautiful city.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The
Architecture.
the architecture, you know, the buildings that the facades of the apartments, and nobody's living in a house. They're all living in
At least in
apartments.
Moscow, yeah.
In the city of Moscow. And the blocks are long, 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 and the building goes the whole way. But it's interesting. There's little alcoves, there's balconies, there's different colors, the structure. It's pretty to look at. I mean, we just couldn't get, and they're all different, but they go way, you look down the street and you can see row after row after row of all these condos. I mean, people are just living like that. At night, you see an empty light bulb. There's Spartan inside, I'm sure. But the
Most of them are,
outs-
and they're different. The tour guides, the city tour that we did the first day, tour guides can tell you what era a particular apartment building is from, whether it was
Yeah.
from the Stalin era or the Gorbachev era,
Yeah.
or
Right.
Oh,
Were they
seriously.
in their Gothic period or, you know, their Byzantine? I mean, it was, you know, you see slight variation once they point it out to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just absolutely great. And there are parks all around these condos. So there's lots
Big
of
parks.
big parks. And I mean, they can go out, you see people walking dogs, you see all kinds of things on the street.
How about waterways? Are there waterways in Moscow?
not
in the
so much in
city,
Moscow.
Not in the city.
St.
no.
Petersburg is the Venice of
Yeah,
of
there,
Russia.
that's
thank
where the
you for that.
canals
Yeah,
are. Yeah, we took
yeah.
a canal ride, right through everything,
So you got to see the Kremlin and all that?
Oh.
Do you know what
Did it make
Kremlin?
you feel
You know what
the
Kremlin?
spies there and everything?
Yeah,
You know
no.
what Kremlin means?
No.
Walled city.
The original city.
The city within a city.
City within a city.
Yeah.
And a lot of the cities in Moscow have Kremlin, I mean, in Russia have Kremlins. It's not just one Kremlin, like we thought it was a building. You know, we just learned so much. In fact, they told us in St. Petersburg, the guy said, you Americans have Russia all wrong. We're not a poor country. And we're not, you know, behind the times, and you know, and we could see people are dressed like we are. They're walking. They're, you know, they look prosperous. They're eating in restaurants. They're shopping.
And churches everywhere.
Yeah,
Inside the Kremlin.
Are they seriously religious, or just
not really.
Historic churches?
Yeah.
Historic churches, and a lot of them were built by the czars, or by the aristocracy, and devoted to a particular person. And, you know, inside the Kremlin wall, I think there are three major cathedrals.
Yeah. And they, just kind of like Catholics did a lot of things to get to heaven, you know, the Russian Orthodox, these aristocrats would build a church, even if they don't need it, even if the people aren't going to come to it. But they would just build it to, you know, show God that they love God, and here it is to God.
It's
Here's
simple.
Yeah.
So, you know, I get the feeling that there's a certain respect for the past.
Yes.
And that when you went on a tour, people were communicating that to you.
The tour guides are all certified.
Yeah.
And we didn't hear criticism of any era. And, you know, the czars, many of the czars were pretty vicious people. I mean, they were killing wives and children to stay in power and killing each other off.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty violent history.
Yeah, and a lot of paranoia and everything. And we've heard of Ivan the Terrible. Well, I mean, that's...
He was.
He was. That's what they all admit he was.
You heard it here on ThinkTech. Ivan the Terrible was terrible, or worse.
But they were so proud in telling the story, the history of any era and any building that you went to.
Yeah.
And it was just, and the art in the churches and in the palaces was just absolutely breathtaking. It was like Versailles.
Yeah, but bigger.
What about music?
Oh, we have to tell you about the singing. That when I had not been in a Russian Orthodox church, and so I was not prepared to see no statues, no pews. You stand for 4 hours in a Russian Orthodox church, and the acoustics are so magnificent, and they sing a cappella. So we heard just 4 men, but they've just filled the whole. I thought we were with the angels. It was something else.
And they minimize, they're very big on acoustics, and they minimize columns and other things in the churches that are going to interfere with the acoustics.
How interesting.
I mean,
You don't find that everywhere, actually.
Yeah, and then instead of statues, they have what they call icons, and they're the pictures on the wall, and they're gold, and so everything is gold. I mean, you feel this richness and this elevation that, you know, it feels, I don't know, like better. Spiritual, but better than holy. It's just that you're surrounded by gold, and that's what the gold domes on the churches are. The gold symbolizes God up there. Now, we saw some that had black and blue, but that means that there's something somber going on. There's somebody buried there. So it's not all celebration. It's, you know, a commemoration. If you see that
Speaking of
mushroom.
Dark and gray, you know, I'd be looking for signs of the KGB. I'd be looking for signs of communism. You haven't mentioned anything like that yet.
Well, they have. I'll start. That they have a take on communism, that it was good for the country, that it gave everybody education, it brought everybody up. And so they liked that. And then when things shifted again and capitalism came in, well, some people got left behind. But the people that took advantage of the education were ahead. And we had local guides everywhere, and you could just tell that they were the ones that did benefit from communism, because they were all middle-aged to 60 to 80, or no, I don't think we had even 80, but
60s and
70s. Yeah.
And well-educated.
And well-educated and proud, very proud.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want to play your slideshow. Okay, so we can really get into this in some detail. Okay, it's Mike Hamnet and his wife Francia Hamnet, and here we're going to call this ThinkTech Global. And Zdravstvuj.
Spasiba.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Carlos Juarez, host of Global Connections, and I want to invite you to come join us. We cover a range of global issues. We bring a lot of expert opinion, a lot of issues, whether they're contemporary events happening in the world or maybe looking at things from a more historical perspective. Global issues, very important for us to understand in this globally interconnected world. Join us here on Global Connections.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on ThinkTech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Okay, we're back, we're live. Let's look at some slides.
Right. Okay.
But before we do that, I want to talk about this pride point. I think you made that point before, but you also mentioned it during the break, that the Russians are proud of their history, their culture, their art, their music, and so forth.
And
you saw that.
It just came through everywhere.
Everywhere. It came down even with the ladies that were cleaning our rooms, and they cleaned very well. But you know, they took pride in their work. They carry themselves well. And when you look around what they have in that country, there's reason to be proud. There's lots of minerals, lots of art, lots of forests, lots of water. I mean, it's a big, big country.
God, I've got to say, you guys had a good time.
We did.
We're full of it, I'm sure.
Okay, here we got the Novodevichy.
Novodevichy.
Convent. Yeah,
Convent.
What is it again, Mike?
I think it's Novodevichy.
Novodevichy
Convent,
a
yeah.
Convent World Heritage Site. What is that?
It is a convent, and convents played a big part in sort of the balance of power in Russia, because often czars, you don't divorce anybody. So if you had a wife you didn't like, what you did, she could go off to a convent.
You sent her to a convent.
This could be very popular in the U.S. too.
That's right. Right. And then if she didn't bear you a son, you sent her to a convent so you could marry a younger woman. As long as she was in the convent, you could remarry.
What a great technique.
But the convents and monasteries were just gorgeous. They
Yeah,
really were.
Yeah, interesting. Sounds like you had money to send your wife off that way.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Well, they
here's
had
one.
plenty of money.
Cathedral of the Assumption. I guess this is also in Moscow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you see that's not just one gold thing, but you've got colored domes there.
Yeah.
So it was used for, probably burying somebody.
The burials.
The burials.
There are
They
people
bury
buried
inside.
inside that.
They bury
Okay,
inside.
okay.
Yeah.
And the dark dome symbol sobriety.
Sobriety. Yeah.
Interesting. So
Yeah,
it has
yeah.
a symbolism to
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But
there's symbolism,
yeah,
everything.
Right, but you see churches like that all over the place, and you think, God, this little town, how could
can
it
they
have
do
so many
that?
churches? Yeah, well, they don't care if anybody's in there, and nobody really is in there.
And it wasn't just the czars that built, it wasn't just the aristocracy. Wealthy merchants built churches.
Yeah.
And sometimes in a small wealthy town, you might have 3 or 4 churches.
competing.
Yeah, competing, and you see them all at once, too.
That's great fun.
yeah.
You could make your pick. Okay. Moscow subway. What have you heard so much about that? That is
yes.
beautiful over there.
It is gorgeous.
Every stop is different, so that some have statues, some have stained glass windows, things, some have paintings. It was unbelievable.
And this is sort of more on the pride bit. There's so much pride in the art of Russia and of making things beautiful. And the subway stations are, the proudness of Moscow. It just comes through.
Yeah.
And it's a fabulous subway system
Yeah.
for anybody who's interested in rail.
I think you did better. Nobody I know. But you did better than New York. Sure.
Well, we took a nighttime tour to see, we toured it during the day, and then it was an optional tour to take the nighttime, and we took it. And then part of driving around, they stopped at one stop at a subway stop. We went down and we made about 3 or 4 stops on the subway before we came up, and the bus was there to meet us. So we got to see different,
You'd be
subways.
real commuters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was good.
That's a spectacular looking, it's
Oh.
almost cathedral-like in the arches
Yes.
and all that.
Yep. Yep.
What else we got? Okay, the
this
cruise to
is-
Yaroslavl.
Yeah.
Yaroslavl.
Yaroslavl.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were 5 days on the water between Moscow and St. Petersburg, and it was through going over the Volga River and 4 or 5 other rivers, plus canals, plus
2
the
big
largest
lakes.
lake in Europe.
Yeah.
And it was just, and there were 3 boats kind of traveling together. 2 of the Vodohod ones and one of the Viking River cruise boats. And all of the boats in the fleet were all built in Germany, all at about the
What,
same.
owned by Russians?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And the Viking River Company is owned by Russians. And they're all over Europe.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, they are, and they all have the same boats.
And they have the same boats. It's the same design, but inside it's a little bit more luxurious because when you dock together. So,
tandem.
In tandem. So not one in front of each other, one side by side.
So you have to walk over.
You have to walk through your other
So you can
boats.
see the other guy.
So we see the other one. So you could see that, well, maybe the paneling is a little more luxurious. Maybe they've got better lighting, but it's the same layout and everything. And so, it was nice. It was nice to compare. And
Okay, we have here something on the river.
Yeah,
I guess this
the
is on
city.
your trip. By the way, are these your photos?
Yeah.
You guys? Oh, great, great job.
Yaroslavl, that is one of the larger cities in Russia. I think there's about 600,000 people
Yeah,
or so.
something like that.
And everything from sort of the modern city to these fabulous churches
Yeah.
and cathedrals
Yeah.
and parks. The other side of that, cathedral is this huge park laid out by the river,
Yeah.
and it's with beautiful flowers.
Is it a walking country, in other words?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is,
You can
but.
get around by walking.
Okay, but women really should not wear their heels because a lot of it's cobblestone.
Mm.
And so it's, you have to watch where you're walking, and they have sidewalks, but then they've got the cobblestones too. So, but you felt like it's old, it's new, it's,
Sure.
yeah, it's all good, yeah.
Diverse. Okay, what else? We got more now. We're on the way, right?
Oh,
We're on the way to Goritsy and the Monastery of Saint Ceril.
Yeah.
St. Cyril.
Yeah.
Cyril.
Yeah, this is a huge monastery, and again, Goritsy is on the map there, and it's on the way up. Moscow's down the bottom, and it's sort of en route to St. Petersburg.
I can't see St. Petersburg, but is it halfway up or?
No,
It's all the way over on the coast,
It's on the coast.
on the
Okay.
Finnish
On the water,
coast.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Peter the Great wanted to have, he was a naval guy, and he wanted to have a fleet, and he wanted to be able to conquer the world from St. Petersburg, and also defend Russia from the
It
invaders.
is a great city, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, yeah.
The Venice of Russia.
Now, St.
Yeah.
Petersburg was like semi-destroyed in the war.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see signs of that?
No, everything has been rebuilt, but I'll tell you, the enmity that Russians have for the Germans knows no bounds. I mean, the Germans came in, and it's sort of a little bit, the Nazis sort of treated things the way the Taliban treated certain antiquities. No, seriously.
And when they left, after they lost World War II, they bombed palaces before they left. They just burned them.
Just to destroy things.
Just to destroy it. And what happened was the people, without anybody telling them, this is what the guy told, poor people came in and started getting down on hands and knees in the rubble and trying to find the gold and gathering up the gold to rebuild the pillars that were there. And we saw the pictures of the devastation, and then to see, I
guess they did rebuild it, eh?
They
They
rebuilt,
sure as
it
heck
just
did.
knocked our socks off to see
The
it.
other-
It's one thing to
this-
see a picture, but to be there is something.
The slide that she had up there before gives you some sense of it. Part of the riverways were developed in conjunction with hydroelectric under Stalin. And they dammed up rivers and tributaries and built these huge power plants. And they built their locks joining up all of these rivers and canals and lakes. And so you're kind of going through all of that.
Yeah.
And
At
here's,
least 14 locks that we went through
Oh,
on this
wow.
trip. Yeah.
That's a lot for a boat that size.
Yeah.
and they get two of them
Yeah,
in there.
Yeah, one in front of the other. You don't go side by side there, in these, but they're
Kizhi.
Kizhi, yeah, Kizhi.
And this is the northernmost, I think it's the northernmost settlement in Russia. And I think it's been settled since like 900 AD. Yeah. And this is a wooden church that's being rebuilt and restored there. But they're constantly restoring and rebuilding things.
Really? That's so interesting.
Yeah, in fact,
because we don't do that in this country.
No.
We don't restore things.
And you know, despite what people have said about the anti-religious sentiment of communism, they took care of their antiquities, and there were churches that were shut down and destroyed, but there were many of them were made into museums.
Yeah.
And the artifacts were preserved, and that's more of this Russian pride thing, and even. I mean, probably people who lived through the communist era through the Stalin era would say that there was more sort of disdain for the czars and the history than people are saying today. But it's just the antiquities are there, and they were preserved and rebuilt after the Germans left.
Well, that's it. We live in another time now.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time since you had hard-nosed communism there.
Oh, yeah.
And so they mellowed on the issue of historical, value.
Can we go back to that wooden church?
Sure.
The Kizhi church?
We're going to go back to the Kizhi church.
Yeah. The one that you see from a distance.
Transfiguration,
yeah. It's on an island somewhat, and when it was built, they asked 5 different communities to contribute to build this. And they said, okay, we'll give you all this money, but we want to have the best view of this church. But here, 5 people want the best
from 5 different perspectives.
And so that's why they made this, like, something like 23 of these domes on top. It's kind of like a round thing so that every view is good.
Would have a good view
of it. And there are no nails when you build it. It's all wood and there's no nails.
Pegs, wooden pegs.
It's something, we don't know how they did it,
A lot of the structure itself are 2x4s stacked on each other. So rather than having sort of double wall construction, it's a single wall, and it's not panels, it's 2x4s stacked on one another. And you see in some farm structures, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it gets very cold on that island.
It wasn't cold for your trip, though.
No. But there are big parts of the waterways that we were on that are frozen solid in the wintertime.
Yeah. Because we took the last trip up. The last trip coming back was the one after us.
That's the most exciting time to go.
Yeah. It's a good time to travel. Now, that church was.
Before you say that, we're going to take a break. I want to go back. I mean, when we come back, I want to talk about the museum and St. Petersburg. I also want to talk about your impressions of aside from the pride, which we talked about already, of the people, stories, memorable characters that you met.
Okay.
Right? We'll be right back after this short break.
Aloha, my name is Jim Sean, and I'm host of a show called Education Movers, Shakers, and Reformers. Each week, live streaming at noon on ThinkTech Hawaii, we interview people who have special insights into education from early education through K-12, all the way through higher education and beyond. Both public and private are areas we're interested in. We dig deeper. We try to find out what it's really like to be involved in making change, advocating for it, how you reform, what people's philosophies are in reforming it. As I said, we're live streaming every Wednesday at noon on ThinkTech Hawaii. And later on, you can find these interviews on YouTube and on the Hawaii Educational Policy Center website. We hope you join us as many times as possible. Aloha.
Okay, we're back, we're live, we're starting to get excited about this trip now. These guys are coming out like a fire hydrant now. So you want to do the Cathedral of the Bloody River or whatever it was?
Okay.
Spilled blood.
Well, all right. Well, Ivan the Great.
Blood.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ivan the Great had a 10-year-old son, Dmitri, and and it wasn't
That's
safe.
Ivan the Great or Ivan the Terrible?
Ivan the Terrible,
It's the
sorry.
same thing.
Yeah, I've got so many greats. So Ivan the Terrible had the son, and so he was in danger of losing his life, so he went to Uglitch to hide. And what happened was that Ivan's men came and killed him. They cut his throat. And so at the very place that they killed him, they built this wonderful church
This
to
church we
commemorate.
see
This
now.
is in St. Petersburg.
That's,
No,
is that
no,
in St. Peter-
well, he's, is
St.
that,
Petersburg.
that's another spill blood of Dmitri. I'm sorry. I mean, Dmitri's
There's
spilled
lots of-
blood
there
is
was
the
lots
one
of
in
spilled blood,
Uglitch.
I
I'm
can tell you.
sorry. I see, you know, there are a lot of them. Okay, this one here, let's go
Well,
back
that
to
was
that
the
one.
same, that's the same, I mean, it is still a tribute to the
It's-
dead son, I think.
That's, yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful piece of work, that
It's
church.
gorgeous. It's
Look at the way the
absolutely
light falls on the
It's
architecture, you know?
yeah.
it's- And
Oh.
look at how cold that sky looks.
Yeah.
Well, and these are the canals, you know, St. Petersburg's called the Venice of Russia, and we did take a canal tour, and it is just fabulous.
Yeah,
It really
yeah.
is.
I mean, they're not gondolas. They're little riverboats that go through and all. But it was very. And then at night, what are the hours? From 11 to 5.
From 1 to 5.
1 to 5. They
1
open
o'clock
all.
a.m. to
Yeah.
5.
Yeah,
They open all the bridges in St. Petersburg to let the commercial shipping traffic go.
because
go
they
around.
can't. Yeah, because
That is
the
so
bridges
cool.
are low. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all footbridges and stuff.
So you got through Hermitage. I
Oh.
remember that somebody made a movie of the Hermitage, maybe 10 or 20 years ago, where they never turned the camera off. They just kept walking through the rooms in the Hermitage. It was quite interesting.
And they go on forever and ever and ever,
Yeah,
and I've
yeah,
never
yeah.
seen so much gold in my life.
I mean, the pillars were like 2 stories tall, and the auditorium that they were in I mean, you couldn't see the end of it. It was so overwhelming. The first one we walked in, I almost fell backwards. It was so sparkling and gold and chandeliers and mirrors, and it was, but you know, also I was looking up, I was looking this way, I was looking down, because the floors, we had to wear booties, because the
Not to
floors,
scratch the floor.
Yeah.
the floors are inlaid with gorgeous artwork that I mean, it's all wood, it's white wood, it's red wood, it's brown, every floor was different. It was a work of art. I don't know how they did it with the tools that they had at that time. It was something else.
Who put it together? Was there one person or
I don't know.
king?
Well, they did have, Catherine the Great did commission an architect from Paris to do 1 or 2 cathedrals, and then there were others that came in.
But one of the things about both Catherine the Great and Peter the Great, their mission was to take Russia from basically barbaric times into the pride of Europe. And Catherine had an art buyer in Paris.
And in England.
And in England, and they were scooping up European treasures. And there's not a stitch of Russian art in the Hermitage. It's all European art.
Right.
Yes.
Must be an incredible collection. It's just so big.
Oh, yeah. In fact, we heard that if you spent 1 minute with each piece, it would take you 7 years, 8 hours a day to do that. 7 years to see everything.
You can't do this continuously. I mean, is it a one-day thing?
Yeah.
Or,
Well,
or you have to sit down a little?
Well, you know
once
what
in a
they
while?
did? They gave us an afternoon in the Hermitage, and we did not go into the galleries where the paintings were. We were just in the living quarters and in where they had the reception halls. And you just go through the dining hall, you go through the the throne room, you go through the one reception hall after another one, because some are lesser than others, but they're all fabulous. Just so much. You couldn't think of how many more uses of gold can they use. I mean, they had around frames and around mirrors and around pillars, and I mean, it was gold all over.
Did you ever think, why couldn't I have been born into this family? I don't mind losing my head at the end of the day, but for the moment, for the times they lived well, eh?
Oh, the
No,
opulence
yeah.
knows no bounds.
Yeah, less than 1% of the people. And Catherine, after her husband was killed, just kept taking on lovers. And the lovers would last she liked young men, and she'd pick them from the guard, And they would last maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And even when she's in her 60s, she's finding these young lovers. And the family's going, oh boy, yeah, we'll be rich, because
what happens when they were turned out, when they left, she gave them a castle.
She gave them a palace and 3,000 serfs. Yeah, 3,000.
She had the money.
She sent them away so they would no hard feelings, and she'd take somebody else in.
No wonder they had a revolution.
Yeah, I mean, it was and then when you read about the food that they ate, I mean, they had 7, 8 courses of different kinds of meat and fish and quail, and it goes on every night. They're eating like this, and the poor people are starving.
I was going to ask you, how did you eat? Did you have the fish and the quail?
Well, I tell you,
some of it.
The boat was wonderful, and you know, it's not like French cooking that would be really, but it was better than home cooking. Okay, the soups, the salads, absolutely great, but it's the bread, Jay. It's the bread.
That rich Russian bread
oh,
with
my
all those
goodness.
grains in it.
Oh, but it's not heavy.
Bread.
But it's not heavy. It's solid, but it's so good you couldn't stop eating it.
Live on it.
Oh yeah, 3 pounds later. So it was good.
We don't have much time left, so I wanted to ask you if you could give me some caricatures of people that you met who are memorable. Russians, preferably.
The three well, there were 4 entertainers on the boat. There was a trio, an accordion player and a wonderful big woman who was also the song instructor, and a beautiful young singer as well. And they did shows a couple of nights.
A couple of nights for us.
But then they organized a talent show.
But we didn't know it was a talent show.
We didn't.
They said, well,
Did you guys get sucked into a talent show?
Well, no.
We got sucked into song lessons.
All right. Well, the first one was that we're going to have Russian dance lessons. So I signed up for that, and but 60 of us signed up, and then she showed us the dance, and it was very complicated. So she got us in rows, and we're practicing with her. And then at the end, she says, and then we're going to have a talent show for this dance. I didn't show up for the rest because I thought, this dance I cannot do. So then when we go for the Russian songs, you know, we're practicing this one song, and then at the end she said, we're going to have a Russian talent show. And I thought, well, we could sing. So there were a number of us. So we missed the second lesson. The third lesson we show up, this is the last lesson, and there are only 6 of us left in this thing. And we were the Russian chorus. But thank goodness that the accordion player could sing, and the buxom song leader could sing. So here the 6 of us did okay. But we were panicked because before we went on, the Chinese.
There were 3 groups. There was from the tour company that we went with, there were 3 groups, and there were about 100 of us, I guess.
Yeah.
And then there were about 20 Chinese and about 10 Italians.
Italians.
And
Okay. The Italians didn't do anything, but the Chinese got up and sang Chinese songs that they knew. And they sounded like angels. I mean, they were so good. And I'm thinking, I hope they scrapped the Russian chorus. We're not going to do it very well, because we were the final act, you know. But it did. And then, after we finished, they said, oh, they wanted volunteers, and they wanted, from the 6 of us, 2 men and 2 women to be in a thing. And so there were only 2 men that were, so I knew Michael was going to be one, so I volunteered because I knew. So we had to be, they had this great sense of humor. They have spoons, wooden spoons, red spoons. Should we tell them about that? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, what they told us to do was that they were going to introduce us as very distinguished international musicians that had come to grace the program. And we were to come in with our noses in the air and sit down on 4 chairs in front of them. And so they gave us each 2 spoons. So here's the accordion player playing this little song. The conductor went like this, and then we went click with our spoons. That's all we had to do, click. And then some more music, and then click with our partner. Can you imagine doing stuff like this? People were falling over.
We don't have any photographs of this, unfortunately.
People were falling on the foot laughing.
That they couldn't believe that we would do something like that. But
what a fun trip.
I know.
You had it all.
I know. It was really, really good. Yeah. And you know, we've been just talking to our friends about do it, because it was such fun. we didn't have that same reaction after the one to Alaska, because we only went up 3 days and came back the same
Yeah,
route.
different entirely.
It was different entirely,
Yeah.
yeah. This was so
Well,
unique.
you got to take that advice and do it before Mr. Putin goes really wild, which he's doing in Syria right now.
Yeah, no.
But, that's Mike Hamnet and Francia Hamnet. A couple had a great time and a great trip, and I envy you. And maybe
You should do it.
If my
Do
wife
it.
watches this, I'm a goner. I'll have to go. ThinkTech Global, and now I'm not going to say Zdravstvuj. I'll say
Добрый день. Good day.
Good day.
no,
Nobody did.
goodbye.
Oh.
До свидания.
We don't, oh, well,
I
that
don't
sounds
know.
good. We don't know that.
До
but-
свидания.
До свидания.
Okay, great.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Spasiba. Thanks for having us on the show.